how I learned to stop overthinking. I owe this to one of my first coaches, Adrian Bosman at San Francisco CrossFit. So when I started, I knew nothing about any of this stuff. And as a kid, I loved geeking out. So my solution to everything was to try and solve it. If I can solve it in my head, if I can figure out how this works, I thought I can figure out how to get to the result. So I shut up the first few months of CrossFit because, well, really, I don't know how better to say I sucked, but I found it a struggle to even finish a workout and things like that. But once I found my groove, bits of my personality that were in check until then, started showing up. So as soon as Boz finished explaining the workout, I would ask him, at least one question, but more like three. How do I do this? Or is this what we're supposed to do? Or what if I did this and this instead of that and that? Just questions. And he would patiently answer until one day he didn't. One day, he just stopped me and he said, "Hey, Arv, turn this off." And I still vividly remember him standing where he would normally stand and coach, putting his finger to his head and signaling for me. And I didn't really have time to process it because that's something that jars with me, okay? Because I've never done things that way. But, the next thing was workout timer started and you get to it. And that workout was very different. It was amongst the few times when I really did manage to not let my head or my brain get in the way of things. And there's a lot of places where we try to overanalyze technique. I've done this as a coach as well when I do instruct people, but over the 9 years of coaching, I've started trying to coach lesser and lesser and let people figure things out more for themselves, because I do feel that's where things take hold a lot more. My job as a coach is to either tell you a story or try to explain to you as to how this is going to feel or how you're going to try to think about something, rather than just tell you what the 10 things to get right in a kettlebell swing are. That's the easy part. You thinking about those 10 things is not going to get you to do a better kettlebell swing. So now, why is this, right? If I knew the 10 things that make up a kettlebell swing, can I just process it in my head? Well, especially when we are starting off, our neuromuscular coordination is lacking, our proprioception is lacking. Jargon aside, what this means is, are your mind and body in sync? If you tell yourself chest up, will you get your chest up or will you get your chin up? If I tell you you're rounding your lower back, will you be able to rectify that and arch your lower back? You'd be surprised that when we start off, we won't be able to. Not because, it could be because our back doesn't straighten, but many times it's because our brain doesn't know to fire those muscles. And as we keep getting better, the software keeps getting better and better. The hardware is the easier part. Once the software starts to work better, the hardware starts to work better. So that's one reason why this do these 10 things does not work. The second thing is, I've realized this from my own process and seeing a lot of my students go through this. When we have this checklist of 10 things to get right, there's a whole lot of self-criticism that comes in. I did not do this. Come on, you could have done this better. Oh, you forgot to, lock your hips out. You forgot to lock your arms out. Whatever it is, you start focusing on your mistakes and you start being extremely critical of yourself. It's not a good thing. Okay? It's not constructive at all. Instead, what we might be better off is non-judgmental observation. Simply meaning, without looking at it as wrong or right or you didn't do this, just observe what's happening. And the funny thing is, as you start to observe what's happening, and as long as you have a clear idea, and I don't mean this as these are the 10 things in technique, but many times we are very good visually. So if you've seen a demo and you have a reasonable idea about what to expect or what your body is supposed to do, and you just observe yourself doing it, you will start to get better. There's a whole lot of this that Timothy Galloway talks about in Inner Game, but honestly, it was just a boss telling me to stop thinking and allowing me the space and time for me to figure this out by myself, that genuinely made a huge impact in how I train and how I coach people as well. So once we park this self-criticism and judgment, that the about face that happens in your training is amazing. You start listening to your body, and there's a whole host of benefits that come by, but you go based on feel. And rather than trying to analyze everything and judging it as good or bad, you just keep doing reps. And I don't mean zoning out and doing half-assed reps, but you're constantly trying to refine things. And you're like, okay, I need to go, can do a better, I can do a little bit better. Oh, I'm doing a little bit better. You're not really sure why, but you are. So, like Bruce Lee says, and if you haven't seen the scene where he's pointing to the moon and, with the little kid, do watch it. Many times, we're better off if we don't think and instead go by feel. So, try it out. And as always, training is my sandbox for life. I learned this life skill, I would say, at the gym, but this is a life skill I try to translate into life.